Scott didn't mention is that if he had been allowed to do his job and those guys had have gone to jail, that spill in the Gulf would not have happened.
Yes.
So he had the potential to, but the problem is that our government has been taken over long ago. I got a name for it: Oiligarchy, government of the oil companies for the oil companies. And what the oil companies want, the oil companies get, and that's the problem that we have to deal with. There's spills all around the world, but you know, I set the Sea Shepherd Society up not as a protest group, but as an interventionist group to intervene against illegal activities. Protest to me is a very submissive thing. It's like, please, please, please don't kill the whales. Of course, you hang a banner, they kill the whales anyway. What we had to do is say, we're not going to protest you, we're going to stop you. And ever since 1979, that's what we have been doing, going after illegal whaling operations, illegal sealing operations, shark finning operations, and shutting these people down. They are criminals. In many cases, though, they're supported by governments. And to give you an example of that, in 1986, we sank half of Iceland's whaling fleet in their harbor. Now, that might seem like an illegal thing to do. And we also destroyed the processing plant. But I immediately flew to Reykjavik and demanded that they arrest me because they weren't responding to my letters. So I had to get on a plane there. And I was met at the airport by 150 police officers plus the chief immigration officer. And he said, "Captain Watson, how long do you intend to stay in Iceland?" I said, "I don't know. 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years. It's up to you." And he said, "Well, we have to go for interrogation." I said, "Sounds good." We went to interrogation. He says, "Are you admitting to sinking these ships?" I said, "Look, you know we sank them, and we're going to sink the other two at the first opportunity." The next morning, they escorted me to the airport and put me on an airplane and sent me back to New York City. And the Minister of Justice stood up in the House and he says, "Who does he think he is? He comes into our country and demands to be arrested. Get him out of here." Because they knew that to put me on trial in Iceland would be to put Iceland on trial for their illegal activities. And that's what they were doing. We're in the same situation right now with Japan. What Japan is doing is illegal. They're targeting endangered and protected whales in an established international whale sanctuary in violation of a global moratorium on whaling, in violation of the Antarctic Treaty, and they're in contempt of the Australian Federal Court, which prohibits whaling in the Australian Antarctic Territory. Totally illegal. And that's one of the reasons that after 6 years of intervening against them, they haven't charged us with anything because we're not doing anything illegal. They like to make you think that we're doing everything illegal, and I recently was put on the Interpol blue list. What the blue list is that you're not going to be arrested, but they want to know where you are. So everybody has to report when I cross the country. So when I came back in to the U.S. Just last week, they said, "Oh, you're on the blue list. Where are you going?" "I don't know." "Okay." So that's the blue list. But I don't feel too bad about it. The Dalai Lama is also on the blue list. According to China, he is a terrorist. Now, in a world where the Dalai Lama is a terrorist, I don't mind being one. We have a special category of terrorism now, which is like the political terrorists, people who, in fact, it's getting to the point where if you protest eating tuna fish, you're now a terrorist. So it's gotten the word's being really misused. But anyway, what we've managed to do with Japan is to negate their profits for the last 4 years. They have not made any money because of our interventions. They are now $150 million in debt in subsidies to the Japanese government. We're speaking the language they understand, profit and loss, making sure their losses exceed their profits. This last year, and every year we get stronger, this last year we saved more whales than they were able to kill. We saved 528, they killed 507. We intend to do even better this next year. But they're becoming more and more aggressive. So this last year, on January 6th, they took out our fast interceptor boat by deliberately ramming it, cutting it in half. They almost killed 6 of our crew. In fact, Lawrence de Groot was one of the crew members on board there. By the way, is a former police officer from Rotterdam, so we actually attract a lot of people from the law enforcement. And
he was an environmental cop, too.
And the reason, yeah, he was an environmental cop. And the reason that Lawrence left the police force is because every time you try to arrest somebody, they just let them go with a slap in the wrist. You know, if it's an environmental crime, oh yeah, well, they're a big industry, that's okay, out the door. So it was very, very frustrating. So what happened is they took out our vessel, the Oiligarchy. Now here's the interesting thing about it. I don't know of a single case in maritime history where a ship has been rammed, even accidentally, and the captain of the offending vessel that hit him was never questioned. The captain of the Shonan Maru #2 has not been questioned by anybody. The investigators for Australia and New Zealand said that they couldn't proceed with the investigation because Japan refused to cooperate with the investigation. End of story. Meanwhile, Peter Bethune, the captain of the Oiligarchy, boards the Shonan Maru #2 to confront the captain for destroying his ship, and he gets arrested and taken back as prisoner to Japan, where he spends 148 days in jail, and they convicted him of trespassing on board the vessel. But during the trial, he was not allowed to mention that his ship had been destroyed by that captain. He was not allowed to actually present any evidence in his favor, because in Japan, by the way, the prosecution enjoys a 98% conviction rate. So we knew we weren't going to get him acquitted. So it's a very difficult situation we're up with Japan. They've got the power, they've got the money, they've got the influence, and but we have managed, as a non-government organization, we have managed to cripple them every single year. Because of whale wars, they're very, very upset. That, coupled with the fact that we also worked on this movie called The Cove, which won the Academy Award, we have them on the ropes. The story behind whale wars, by the way, is that a couple of years ago I went to all the different networks and I said, look, you know, the biggest show on Discovery right now is a bunch of guys going out into some remote area up in the Bering Sea in rough weather and catching crabs. I will give you men and women from around the world going to an even more remote area in even worse weather to save whales. Has to be more compelling than catching crabs every week. And we'll throw icebergs and penguins in and make it much more interesting. So that was the reason that we finally got that show. They actually rejected it until Animal Planet came back and said, hey, well, let's go for it. So, and actually it's turned out to be quite a bonus for us. It's given us a terrific amount of support, and it has, and the Japanese just absolutely hate it. This show shows almost in every country in the world except Japan. Now I want to point out, we're not Japanese, we're not anti-Japanese. And in fact, we've actually, what we've been able to do in Japan with this show and with the movie is to provoke a controversy within Japan. And now a lot of Japanese people are talking about this. And they're saying, well, look, what are we wasting all this money for? Why are we getting such a bad reputation? And so that's the kind of discussion that we wanted to initiate years ago. But because of the media in Japan, the average Japanese person wasn't even aware there was a whale hunt in Antarctica. They were not aware that there was a dolphin kill in Taiji, Japan. Now, because of whale wars in the Cove, everybody in Japan is aware of the situation, and they can choose to have a choice in the matter. And every year we go down, last year we had 16 nationalities on our crew, and every year we have Japanese crew members on board. So it is a multinational sort of crew in that way. And so anyway, we lost our vessel, the Oiligarchy, and this year we've been working desperately to get our vessels ready to go back. The Steve Irwin's in Barcelona now. It'll be leaving in September to go back to Australia. The Bob Barker has been in Hobart being worked on, and it will be ready in December. And we're also going to secure a second vessel, which is what we're raising funds for now. A third vessel, I mean, to replace the Oiligarchy, another fast interceptor vessel, so that when we go back, it will be with 3 vessels and a helicopter, and that will be our fleet. And I think that, and we're also got an advantage this year is that Australia will be taking Japan to court on this issue, and Australia is about to have an election, and it's a virtual certainty that the Green Party will hold the balance of power, and they will be supporting us on this. There's no doubt about it.